folks, before we kick off the lightning round, 2 lightning talks, back-to-back, 15 minutes each with a 5-minute break, I want to say this is also your chance to meet another organizer of a Cloud Native Day in Romania. Woo-woo! And are CFPs still open?
They're not open yet, so please stay tuned to that.
So they're not open yet, but the event is in May.
The event is in May, 18, 19, so we know that. In Bucharest.
In Bucharest. Here we go. Right, that's your chance. All right, I think we got 15 minutes. What else can we say? I think you are going to talk a little bit about your 1-year journey in how to contribute to open source, right?
Exactly.
And also how, I think you said it very nicely, how to diversify your contributions.
Yep.
Nice shirt, by the way.
Yeah, it's a neurodiversity shirt, and I'm going to slightly talk about that too.
Perfect. I would say with this, I will give you the floor, 15 minutes, and all the best.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. So I'm Diana, I'm a developer experience engineer at Victoria Metrics. And to be honest, I really like this motto from Cloud Native Days Romania, everyone is a volunteer, because it kind of like focuses me to embed it in like everyone is a contributor. You don't know it until you're actually doing it. So let's jump into it. Servus, I'm Diana, I'm a Cloud Native Days Romania organizer. I used to be an SRE for a very long time in observability. Then I discovered conferences, and then I switched to developer experience engineering. I'm also an OpenTelemetry member and contributor. And I'm a co-lead of neurodiversity. That's a Merge Forward CNCF initiative. I'm going to speak about that a bit at the end. So for me, how did I start working, discovering basically open source projects? Last year in 2024, actually Linux Foundation community gave us shout outs in the community that they wanted observability SMEs to start contributing for the very first OpenTelemetry exam. So I jumped into it along with other people, and we started like a long-term project that took like several months, and maybe 8 or 9 months, to actually start and contribute for this OpenTelemetry certified associate exam. Meaning what? Meaning that we had to review the documentation, write exam questions, review those exam questions, create a large pool of questions, for people to, be able to have like a lot of questions to test it with. To be honest, that was a very first great experience with open source. Why? It introduced me to CNCF, it introduced me to the community, and also I got to know a lot of professionals working with OpenTelemetry from all different areas, obviously, and all different levels of experience. Right, but because I was a site reliability engineer and I like to put things into production and work with that, that wasn't enough at that time. So what I did at my company at that time, we worked with a lot of stack of open source. Also, they had a lot of fragmented observability. And we decided to move from the commercial APM provider to an open source one, right? So the people at my company didn't know about OpenTelemetry, so I suggested them, look, there is this very cool CNCF project called OpenTelemetry that does distributed tracing, so let's test it, let's try it, and see if we can put it into production. Okay, great. So I handled the proof of concept, I created it, started collaborating with software engineers. We tested in a bunch of SDKs like Node.js and PHP. Then we decided, like, okay, this is the point where we're testing and staging. It went fine. How about production? So at production level, we discussed it with management, and guess what? It received a no. So that was an interesting experience from my side to discover the realities, how a CNCF project is received in a company. By the way, it was a DACH company, so several things, play into action for European companies. So one, it highly depends on compliance and regional questions, like region regulations. They didn't like the fact that for us, OpenTelemetry at that time anyway had a lot to improve in the documentation. There were like a lot of things left confusing. We had to like try several things to actually work. We had to manually instrument a lot of things. So the whole developer experience was a bit, let's say, flaky at that point. Also, we weren't a very big company, so except you're coming from like companies like eBay, LinkedIn, Amazon, etc. You have like engineering teams that are very limited in their own time, and they cannot dedicate, let's say, months of working with a specific open source project to actually put it into production. So we realized that for OpenTelemetry to actually be successful in production and for us to be able to sustain it, we needed a lot of help. We needed help. We didn't have anybody with experience in distributed tracing, but also we were wondering, like, is the community going to help us? Are we going to receive support from the community once we reach production? So that's very unlikely that you'll open a ticket with the actual community to get help for OpenTelemetry. But we very much liked its potential, right? So the fact that it's vendor neutral, the fact that we can switch back and forth, let's say, to other observability vendors, the fact that we can still do a bunch of things. We can manage our own distributed tracing. We can play around with customization and so on. But because of the several things that I mentioned, limitations, at that time, we didn't agree to put it into production. So not a problem. I wrote a blog article about it. And we also provided the developer feedback to the community. That's something I always recommend you to do, right? So if you are frustrated or not with an open source project, with an experience, something that you wanted to put into production or you played in production, it didn't work out, just add it in a GitHub issue. And normally, like, the developers there will bump it up and we just start working on it, right? So for our case, we did that, and we mentioned that the experience of really auto-instrumentation wasn't there yet, yeah? And Grafana actually had a very nice proposal, a Bela proposal, that later turned this year into the donation eBPF auto-instrumentation that right now is being called OBI. So 3 name changes. So anyway, so that was really cool, the fact that we went ahead and we discussed everything in the open. I highly suggest you to do that as well. So for me, individually as an engineer, I got really frustrated, so I was like, okay, no, I don't have this in production. I always wanted to have OpenTelemetry in production, so what should I do? Should I just go and leave my company? Well, yeah, I did that, but just after a while and not because of that. So anyway, so I decided to go as an individual contributor in Cloud Native. Yeah, so that's this road, the lonely road as an individual contributor in Cloud Native. You're not getting paid, by the way. So you're not org dependent anyway, so you don't have to like think about, oh, does my company really like what I'm doing? No, so you don't have to worry about this guilt trip. Then you could play around with codes and no-code contributions. So code contribution is obviously when you're writing like software coding, you're doing coding lots of stuff. And there's like this whole bunch of new territory called no-code contributions that I didn't even know about, and I will speak to you about that. And then you could play around with multiple open source projects. So you don't have to like just stay grounded into OpenTelemetry or Kubernetes. You could play around with a whole bunch of related projects, and the world, to be honest, is really, really small. So at that time as well, I discovered local communities. So when I dipped my nose into the CNCF Slack, into the community, I discovered that there are lots of communities there, DevRel, localization, there are like local communities as well. I started to go to like meetups in Valencia. I'm not Spanish, but I live in Valencia. And I started also to go to like Cloud Native Days events, right? And talk about my frustrations with OpenTelemetry and open source in general. And I discovered something really unique. I discovered the documentation and this part called like languages, And then I looked here and I found out, was fehlt hier? Kein Deutsch? So there is no German. So you have to fix this issue. Now is your time to shine and start contributing to localization. Boom. So localization is the stuff that you can take documentation and translate it into your own language. Yeah, so I know developers that we tend to get really frustrated about documentation in general. One, because we don't ever contribute to it, and two, because we always want it to have it perfectly, but you know, how can you have it perfectly if you're not contributing to it? So yeah, and the people that actually contribute to localization are contributing to the fact that you want to read it in your own language. So it has like a very huge impact on the community, right? I mean, how many of you want to read in German your own documentation for a specific project, right? That seems very intuitive. So I started thinking after a while, after I was like, okay, I live in Spain, I'm contributing to localization in Spanish, but you know, what's missing from that list as well? Like Romanian as well. So I was like, okay, that's something new that I could do. So I started to create my own SIG for Romanian. And I started like, you know, grabbing people from like the internet. It's like, oh, there is this cool project that I'm doing. Let's start translating things from OpenTelemetry. And like this, we can spread around, you know, the knowledge of OpenTelemetry in our own little country called Romania. So we started this, actually, we're like in really early stages. And the thing is about that is that we built a community, right? So there's the chance when you do that to open a PR, to start something new, to actually gather out with people and create a community. So the next thing I discovered, like obviously throughout this whole time, was actually sharing with the audiences. Coming to meetups like this or like events and actually sharing it live makes a total difference. There's a game changer in the whole in the whole journey, because actually people come to you and they say, hey, yeah, look, I did exactly the same thing, you know, in my company. They didn't want me to do that, you know. So all the frustration was out there in the open. So I really recommend that you step up as engineers, boys and girls, and go to meetups and start doing talks. For engineers, it's a breath of fresh air. And also, you have to write what you're doing, right? So it doesn't have to be somewhere like in a really pretty blog. There is not only CNCF blogs, you know, you can write it on Medium, you can write it wherever you want, you just do it, right? Because for sure, I discovered that other people went through the same frustrations, whether production or not, as myself, so it's always good to ventilate out in the open. So, before I wrap it up, I want to say, from my experience, that my motivation was my superpower, right? So when you get a no straight in your face, you don't have to actually stop doing what you love or what you want to do. You have to find a way to diversify, right? So this is the second point, where you say no, you have a no in your face, then you turn and you find other ways that you can progress. That's highly recommended. You could always find the loop between code and no-code contribution. So that doesn't mean I will stop at translating things, that I could always go back and do stuff in OCell and start, continue contributing with code. I'm actually gonna do that in my current company. And it's a very, very cool thing actually to pair up and mentor. Giving back to people, you know, growing a community is really, really nice. About Merge Forward, so CNCF started this not very long ago, about underrepresented groups in tech. That includes women, neurodiversity, etc., blind, visually impaired, deaf and hard of hearing, is actually to try to like support and help underrepresented groups in tech in many ways. So if you want, you can join this initiative. There are actually groups around that, and I also want to do like a link between this type of initiative with OpenTelemetry, right? They will help you, for example, write your CFPs for KubeCon and whatnot, and I think that's a very, very cool initiative. And yeah, you can find a bunch of resources here. I want to say thank you, everybody. You can find all my presentation free for download, obviously, on my GitHub. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm super open. You can always let me know what you think. And yeah, thank you very much for everything. Dankeschön.
I say Dankeschön. That was awesome. Yeah, folks, make sure to scan that QR code to follow up with everything that you just said. What I really liked in your summary slide, everyone has a superpower. You don't have to be a coder to contribute, because I find a lot of people saying, there's a demo on there described, it doesn't work. Then, well, try to make it work and then fix it and put in a PR, right? Something like that. That's, I think, super easy. Good. Thank you for being on time, actually a little bit ahead of time. If there are questions, any questions, quickly. We have time for one question. We have 1 minute.
Now is your superpower.
Your superpower to ask a good question, to get a Haribo.
Haribo.
Haribo. Haribo. Okay.
There's a question there.
All the way in the end. All the way in the end.
It deserves 2 Haribos.
I think he's just doing it for the sugar. There you go.
So, regarding writing or documenting what you've done, what your experience, because this is the hardest story, to write your own experience. Some tips and tricks how to make a summary when you want to put, and it's maybe too complex or too much, or how to start. Some tips and tricks how to put your own experience or when to put it.
Yeah, of course. Well, you can do it 2 ways. So you can start like contributing to the official blog of whatever open source project you are contributing. I found that really amazing, and they really appreciate it. So, and you can give your developer experience survey. They have like surveys. You can put it in a blog. Obviously, you can summarize it, but make it personal, right? So think about you yourself, and don't generalize and don't copy. Try to keep your voice, and you should be good. You'll get a lot of help on your way. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.